think we're live. It's Caroline. Hi, Caroline. Hi, Monica. I didn't give you all my warning that I usually do.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Cracks me up every time. I'm just impressed that you all are here. We are doing it again. I love it. You all know the deal. Give me that thumbs up if you can see my screen, which would be me today. And if you can hear me so that I know I'm not talking to myself. But y'all already know that I do that anyway. So let me see those thumbs up. Oh, but I think there's a delay. I really got to figure out how to do that. But since there's a delay and I'm waiting for those thumbs up, I have a surprise for you guys. I didn't want to do this alone today because y'all see me all the time. And by see me, usually you see my screen. But you listen to me all the time. And you all were going to ask me questions because remember, today is about your questions. I'm answering them. And maybe what I should say is we are answering them because I wanted to bring today to you all one of my favoriteest teachers. And yes, I know that's not a word, but one of my favoriteest teachers and soon to be partner in our podcast, Mr. Seth. So if you all want to give him just a round of applause, pretend like he's important. He's kind of vain like that. I want to introduce you to Seth, and here he is. There he
Hello,
is.
everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
excited to be here and hang out with Candace and answer all the fun-filled real estate
Whoop,
questions.
whoop.
She insisted that I come hang out with you amazing folks. She said she didn't want to hang out alone, and I was happy to oblige her. So hopefully I can provide some value and keep you fine folks educated and entertained along with Candace in any way, shape, and form that we could possibly assist y'all this evening. So thanks for
Awesome
having me.
sauce. I love it. So, you guys, you see us. We're here. We don't have anything, anything prepared. So, you got to ask us some questions. Can you see the chat there, sir?
I can see the chat. I can't see people, but I can see the chat. Is that what I'm supposed to
Awesome.
see?
Yes, you're supposed to see
Yep.
the chat. Oh,
Okay.
Letitia said hi. Samantha said hi. I've got the best group of people. I got to say, Seth,
Hello.
they are on it. They study. They are here with me. They do these webinars, and I heart them. I heart them so much. So, who's got a question? Drop that question in the chat. See if you can play a little round of Stump the Teacher. I'm going to do my beard too. See if
Yeah,
you can play a
this is the
round
this is the
of
pensive thing,
Stump the
when you're sitting there
Teacher.
thinking, ready for things to start.
Because I know you got those questions and I'm ready to answer them. Hey,
Hello.
Mary. I can't believe nobody's got a question. But I also know
So
they have
it
to
takes a
type.
while to type it, like sometimes there's like that awkward silence because people have to actually like type something.
We could just be able to send it like ESP.
That would be nice.
ESP. Ah, great question. If you get a question in Illinois and you move to another state, can you do business in the other state? Yes, but how you're going to be able to do that business really is going to depend on the state. So it's not like, oh, I'm licensed in this state and now I can practice anywhere in the United States. Every state has their own criteria. So there are some states where they'll go, oh, you have a license in Illinois? We'll give you a license here. But a lot of times they'll say that with the asterisk of, okay, but you need to take a state specific test for us as well. So it always depends on the state you're going to, right? Oh, and our first real, oh, I hope that helps, Marilex. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. But I'm going to let Seth handle our first question there. Liliana's having problems understanding the different estates. What you got on that, man?
Happy to do that. Let me just circle back around real quick to Mary Alexa's
Mm-hmm.
question about the different states. A lot of states, sometimes you can have, as Candace was saying, an education equivalency where you may not have to take an actual class, but do understand every single state has their own jurisdiction from a real estate commission point of view. In a second, I can actually drop a link to a specific web page where it's got a quick link to all the different states, and then you can kind of like look and see what you would need. So, for instance, being a broker in North Carolina, if I wanted to go to South Carolina, even though I've been licensed for over 8 years, I would have to take the class in South Carolina. If I wanted to get my license in Georgia, I would have to fill out an application and pay a fee. So it really is state specific. And so it's going to depend on the state you're coming from, the state you're going to, and how long you've been licensed. So Just wanted to piggyback off what Candace said. Now, going back to the first official, like real estate exam kind of question, having a problem understanding different estates. And I'll look in the chat to see if you can provide a little bit more. Let's start with just the word estates, right? Hopefully we're all comfortable with the word estate and kind of understanding that that means interest, right? What level of legal interest, what type of legal relationship do you have to a piece of property? And so I think we can all agree that when you own a piece of property, you have a relationship to that property. Likewise, when you're renting a piece of property, even though you may not own it, you have a relationship to that piece of property as well. And so those are the main categories of estates that are testable, right? The estates of ownership, which we call freehold estates, and the estates of lease that we call non-freehold, also known as leasehold estates. So more than anything, the most testable side and the most confusing side has a tendency to be the freehold estates. And so I'm going to, kind of give you a quick rundown there. And if you have any supplemental questions, put them in the chat and we're happy to answer it. So when you're looking at the freehold estates, those are estates of ownership. And so you have to understand that every single thing that I'm about to name is an estate of ownership. Okay. Some of them are weird ownership, but they're all ownership in some way, shape, or form. And so when we get into it, what's happening is you either own it with no restrictions, you either own it where we are restricting the use of the property, or you own it where we're restricting the time you own the property. And so let's just start with the no restrictions and the restricting the use. When we are talking about no restrictions, we call that fee simple absolute. And so for real estate exam purposes, we say that fee simple absolute is the highest and best form of ownership. No restrictions. Now, that is a very kind of unique thing to say, no restrictions, because a lot of students will get confused. Let me amend that statement. No restrictions that would affect your ownership. You may still have public land use controls. You may still have private land use controls like restrictive covenants, but you don't have any restrictions that would mess up your ownership. So you can do whatever you want with your property. You will own it for forever within the scope of the law. That is fee simple absolute. Now, for the real estate exam, if you see the term fee simple or fee simple absolute, they are synonyms. Okay, treat those the same on the test. Okay, fee simple or fee simple absolute. The other big category that kind of splits off from there is what we call fee simple defeasible. And just like everything in real estate, there are always these also known as terminology. So fee simple defeasible is also called qualified fee. So you've got to think about what those root words are, right? Defeasible sounds like to defeat. Qualified means you have to qualify. So that is a type of ownership where you do own it, and we're not limiting how long you own it, but we are limiting your potential use of the property. And so if you don't follow a set of rules, you could defeat your ownership, right? Or in other words, you have to do certain things to qualify for your ownership. So one of the hardest parts of this, and you're not alone in this confusing you. One of the hardest parts is so many of the words sound similar. So like even within defeasible is kind of the blanketed category of restricting your use. There is two subcategories there. One is fee simple determinable, and one is fee simple subject to a condition subsequent, sometimes just called fee simple subject to a condition. And so both of those are types of defeasible fee or qualified fee, where if you don't follow a set of rules, you could lose your ownership. And a lot of people get confused because some of the verbiage is unique. You've probably never heard it before your licensing class. And then, of course, it really makes it hard to differentiate. So in fee simple determinable, it's where we have determined the one use. You own this so long as you only ever use it as a horse farm. So long as you only ever use it as a horse farm, it is yours to own forever. In fee simple, subject to condition subsequent, we say you can do whatever you want as long as you don't do this one thing. So everything but this one thing. So if I said you own this so long as you never, use it as a bar, you could own it forever so long as you only used it for things that were not a bar. And so that's one of those things that most people get confused on. Now, please understand that both of these examples I gave you, no restrictions, fee simple absolute, and with some type of restriction that could cause you to lose your ownership of defeasible or qualified fee, both of those are estates of inheritance. The vast majority of your questions are going to be around, can this be willed to somebody? What happens if you break the rules? Things of that nature. So as long as you follow the rules, you could will fee simple absolute, you could will fee simple defeasible, but the heirs and assigns who inherit it would have to follow the same rules. Is that kind of where you were going with that? Or you want to dive in a little bit more into some of the other ones? There's just so many different aspects to the estates, like conventional life estates. If you want, we can touch on those as well. That's just kind of like the beginning piece.
Well, she happened to say after that she was asking, and I don't necessarily, I think being teachers, we went right to estates, but she asked about joint tenancy and was it tenancy in common?
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah,
and she
yeah.
said joint and then periodic tenancy. So, Liliana, you almost have two different things there. That periodic tenancy that you're talking about, everything Seth just said was on freehold estates where you own it. Periodic tenancy is a type of non freehold estate or leasehold estate, which means you're leasing the property. And a periodic tenancy is when you're renting for a year or 6 months or 3 months, whatever that period of time is. But after that period of time is over, it's just going to automatically renew into another like lease. Kind of like if you've ever rented an apartment, you rent for a year, and if you don't tell them that you're leaving, they're going to put you in for another year lease. And if you don't tell them that you're leaving, they're going to put you in for another year lease until either the tenant or the landlord says, I'm done. And I know that you all have heard me say this before. It's like ladies getting their period. You keep getting your period, that itch keeps coming back every month until you do something to stop it. Whether it's get pregnant, have a hysterectomy, get old, I don't know. But it keeps automatic. Shut up, Seth. It keeps automatically renewing itself. Tell me I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
Menopause.
I said menopause till we get older, whatever. So
Mhm.
that would be your periodic tenancy, whereas your
Oh, I
joint,
see. Okay, I see the correlation there. Okay, I get it now.
you're
I
a
was
little
like, what?
slow.
But
You're a
I
little
get it.
slow. It's
Yep, you
okay.
used the play on
It's a
words
good
there. I
thing
like
you're
it.
pretty, right?
I like it.
Whereas your joint tenancy, that is about more than one person owning the property. That is co ownership. So, in most states, the most basic way to own property is tenancy in common, where if Seth and I were tenants in common on a property, he owns part of it, I own part of it. It doesn't have to be 50-50. And if Seth dies, he could give it to his children. Nothing
My
weird
share.
there. But in joint tenancy, if we own it in most states, our ownership has to be 50-50. And if Seth dies, he doesn't have the ability to give it to his heirs, his kids, because of that thing, the right of survivorship. The right of survivorship says when he dies, I get the property. It'd be just me. So it would be a shame if something were to happen to Seth in joint tenancy
I'm not walking by a set of stairs near you anytime soon,
or an open window, kid.
or an
No
open
open window.
window.
Mm-mm. Because then in joint tenancy, when he dies, or if it was to be me, then the surviving person gets the ownership. So, Liliana, those are those two things you asked about. Let us know if that doesn't make sense.
And
Go ahead.
I will add, it's hard to differentiate those concepts because when we teach them, we kind of teach them in the same lecture section,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we've got the estates, and then we immediately typically roll into ownership and severalty versus concurrent ownership,
Mm-hmm.
and then immediately roll into the survivorship and those other things. And depending on your state, your teacher, and whatever, some teachers will teach the non-freehold or the leasehold estates in that same section.
It's a lot.
Some will teach it in the property management landlord tenant relationship section. So sometimes it's just all jumbled right there in a very similar kind of feel.
Sometimes it's all jumbled. Sometimes
Oh,
that's
every time it's all jumbled. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's a
all
lot.
right.
It's a lot of information.
Samantha had a question. She's having trouble with void, voidable, valid, enforceable, and unenforceable.
Ooh.
Yes, that is once again a big jumble of all words that kind of start with V. What were they thinking? I don't know. So you take void, Seth. Well, let's talk with valid. What does it mean to have a valid contract?
So let's talk about valid. Here's the confusing thing about this, folks. And when you're confused, please don't be ashamed of it because everybody's confused about this. And I'll tell you why. You could Google these words and get 17 definitions because it depends on if it was a real estate instructor, it depends on if it was a law student, and depends on if it was a law instructor. So basic contract law of course, pertains to real estate because we use contracts day in and day out. So when we say something like valid, the easiest way to think of valid is a contract. This is how I like to articulate it: a contract that is presumably enforceable, but not necessarily. And here's where you kind of look at it. A valid contract is a contract that contains all of the four essential elements under basic contract law. Now, yet again, if you ask a law school, they're going to say there's more than four essential elements, but we kind of condense them from a real estate point of view. And so what you have to have a valid contract is legally competent parties. In other words, 18 sane and sober. It's got to be for a legal act. Okay. So house for money, money for cars, something legal. You have to have some type of consideration. So it doesn't have to be cash. Typically it's cash, but value for value. And it has to have mutual agreement. Now that has a lot of different names: mutual agreement, meeting of the minds, mutuality of assent, reality of consent, because every contract is voluntary. Now, here's the confusing piece, and this is why I get why you're asking this question. If a contract has all four of those, it's considered to be a valid contract under basic contract law.
So I'm going to stop you for a second.
Yep.
Do you have, or I know I have one, I say MCLL. Do you have an acronym that they could use or remember for their four essential elements for a valid contract?
I don't. I just repeat it over and over and over again and get like super weird. These four, these four, these four.
Oh, that's what makes you weird? Okay.
Yeah, well, that's one of many things, I'm sure.
So valid means it has the four things. And then you
Yep.
got
So what's your
void.
acronym?
It's MCLL. And I have a picture of LL Cool J, like, because he's an MC, and then his name is LL. So MCLL.
So my
And
brain
it's about
immediately goes back in
contracts.
LLC, but then I guess that could be confusing as well because that's a separate thing in real estate. So like throwing in an M somewhere in like LLC and then like throwing in an M, so like Mr. LLC or something like that. So
Samantha asked, what if the minor's married? Well, we need to get out of the South.
or the
All
other
this minors
countries,
getting
right?
married.
Like those prearranged marriages.
I don't know. But no, I kid, Samantha. If you're talking about a minor getting married, we have gone outside this class. That is CYA. Call your attorney because we do not know, because we are not
Now
law
listen,
people.
Samantha, if you're trying to tell us that you're 16 and you're already married, okay, we're not here to judge, but you probably should have talked to somebody before now, okay? This is not legal advice, okay? We just teach
No
in
legal
real
advice.
estate. Yeah, no
Yeah,
legal advice. So
they're not going to ask you that. That is really call your attorney. But in
yeah.
our test, four things: MCLL, mutual assent, consideration, legal capacity, lawful objective. It's valid. A void contract is one that is not a contract. Like, it never had any legal standing. So if you had two 14-year-olds sign, like if I had a 14-year-old daughter and Seth had a 14-year-old daughter and they signed a contract, hey Dante, and they signed a contract, it's not a contract. It wanted to be a contract, but it is not a contract because you didn't have at least one person who was over age. If I try to get Seth to murder my ex, we don't have a contract because that is not legally, that's not a legal
No
act
lawful
last time I
objective.
checked. But if somebody knows different, let me know. But
Yep. Asking for a friend.
so that would be a void contract, and that kind of relates to your enforceable and your unenforceable. When a contract is valid, it is generally enforceable. In fact, the whole reason we write a contract is because you want to be able to make that person do it. If I sign a contract with Seth and he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, I'm going to go literally tattle to a judge. That's what suing is. It is you tattling to a judge. It is me going to the judge and being like, hey, judge, Seth didn't do what he said he was going to do, and he signed a contract and said he was going to do it. Get him. That's
Never
what
catch
it
me
means
alive.
to
I'm going to
be
Mexico.
enforceable. You said what?
I said, you'll never catch me. I'm going to Mexico.
Nah, I'll catch you. Don't worry. Depends on what you owe me.
So let me piggyback off what you said, because that's exactly right. You know, the whole point of a contract is we want a contract to be enforceable. Now, this is where it's confusing because, as Candace just said, a valid contract is presumably enforceable. And here's why we have to say presumably. Most states have a version of what's called a statute of frauds. which is basically a legal document that says, hey, there are some things that are so important that if it's not in writing, you cannot bring it to court. And real estate sales contracts is one of those things. So if you had an oral agreement to sell real estate and you had all those 4 essential elements, under basic contract law, that is a valid agreement. But in that particular state that required it to be in writing, it's not enforceable. You can't go tattle to Judge Judy anymore and say, I want you to make them do that. So
You can
that's the
tattle.
really confusing piece. You
Yeah,
can, well, they're going
you
to
can
say, well,
tattle,
we
but
can't,
she's
we
not
can
going to do
try.
anything about it because it's
They're not
not in
going to let you
writing.
come to court about it because they say you don't have a contract. We don't care. We can't do anything.
We're not enforcing it.
It wasn't written is the problem.
And in that same vein, when Seth says it's presumed to be good and enforceable and valid, imagine I got Seth to sign this contract by holding a gun to his head. Now, if that contract ended up in front of Judge Judy and she had no notes, no nothing, like I had him sign a contract to sell me his house and it's got his signature, it's got my signature, it's got all of the pieces together, she's going to look at it and she's going to say, this looks awesome. But if she digs a little deeper, she's going to find out really he didn't go into this with mutual consent. Really, he didn't have a mutual meeting of the minds because Candace had a gun to his head. I would never put a gun to his head. I'm so much more of a poison girl. But shut up, Seth. They are not calling for help. I'll let him out of my basement later. But that idea that she wouldn't be able to tell that it was signed under duress, that's what makes it voidable. On the outside, it looks like it's valid, but there's some people of, exactly, Samantha, duress. Or are you asking me what duress is? Duress means to do something under a threat, right? So if I hold that gun to his head, you can't tell by his signature it was under duress. But if she finds out there was duress or this threat, she would void it. If she found out that Seth was underage, she could void it. Letitia said, blink twice if you need help. Watch it, sir. I can see you too. So I don't know if that helps, but if we were to sum it up, valid means it's got all 4 of the pieces: mutual assent or agreement, consideration, legal capacity, lawful objective. All right. If it is enforceable, that means a judge would enforce it. If it's unenforceable, that means the judge, even though it's in writing, wouldn't enforce it. And that could be for different reasons, like it's a transfer of interest in real estate and that statute of frauds kicks in, where it says this has to be in writing because we said so. Void means it doesn't have any effect whatsoever. It tried to be a contract, but it's not. And voidable means there's something about it there where either the judge or one of the parties of the contract could void it. Right? So hopefully that helps. And I think that's good for that question. I think so.
Yeah,
Do
we
you
can
want
always
to add
circle back
anything to
around.
that?
Yeah, if we can always circle back around if we need to add more. But yeah, I think it's just a really hard concept for these contracts because of like, oh, it's valid and it may be enforceable, but it may not be enforceable. I mean, it really gets confusing, and so it's just revisiting it and understanding kind of these differentiations. So that's an excellent question.
I'm going to try something, guys. I think this works. Hey, look at my magic on my screen. Whoop, whoop.
Oh, you
So,
can put the chat up there.
yeah, I'm working things out, guys. This is the first time I've done like an interview doing YouTube like this, or I have a second person. I can put the question up. So let's try it. What is the difference between PMI and MIP? Go for it, Seth.
PMI and MIP. You would just mean like private mortgage insurance versus government backed loans versus non-government backed loans? Is that it?
Yeah, that's exactly what she wants with a little bit more explanation.
Yeah, I just was making sure that there was not like a specific question in there that I needed to answer. Folks, when we're dealing with loans, of course, in the financing chapter, Lord knows that financing chapter is not fun. We start talking about different loan types. And so, of course, the very broad categories, the main categories we talk about are conventional loans. And then we have these other 3 that are what we call government-backed loans. VA, which is backed by the Department of Veteran Affairs, FHA, which is backed by the Federal Housing Administration, and then USDA, which is backed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now,
what do you mean by backed?
They have some skin in the game, and they help subsidize the insurances on the or guarantees on the loans. And so that's kind of the differentiation, right? And so Candace asked me what I mean by back. So let me go back to that word conventional. A conventional does not have any government buy-in. It is what we call a completely private loan. The banks bear all the risks. They're in it on their own. They're by themselves. And so because of that, if you are getting a loan, and this is something important, the magic number is 20%. Okay. If you're getting a conventional loan, banks like to see at least 20% of a down payment. That shows that you have a lot of skin in the game. You are less of a risk if you're hitting this certain threshold. And so at a 20% conventional loan, you're not required to have mortgage insurance. But if you are getting a conventional loan for less than 20%, they consider you a higher risk. And so, yeah, of course, they have the ability to foreclose on you, but there's still that risk of this gap that, you didn't put that much down. And so when you are getting a conventional loan that is completely private through the bank, not backed by any government assistance or otherwise, you would have to purchase what is called PMI, private mortgage insurance. So it would be a third party company because they are not backed by government. It would basically be an independent insurance agency who provides that private mortgage insurance. And really, that insurance policy is not for you. This doesn't help you when you get foreclosed upon. Although sometimes it can. There's a whole nuance to it that's not part of pre-licensing, but it's really for the banks. And so that's what when you hear PMI, that's private mortgage insurance. That means you had mortgage insurance through a conventional loan. When you're dealing with government-backed loans, because these third parties, government, quasi-government agencies are basically backing the loans and providing these underwriting guidelines, they subsidize the insurance. So there is still mortgage insurance on an FHA loan, for instance, but because the Federal Housing Administration is kind of like providing this backing for this higher risk loan for the banks, they subsidize the insurance. So we just call it a mortgage insurance premium because it's not private. It is subsidized by the Federal Housing Administration. Now with VA loans, similar concept, but they have a guarantee that is provided by the Department of Veteran Affairs versus the standardized insurance. It does basically the same thing. Is that?
That's what I wanted. Could you sum that up for us in 2 minutes? I got you. PMI means the insurance is coming from FHA. PMI is opposite. PMI means the insurance is coming from a private mortgage insurance company. Like if Geico provided mortgage insurance, that's what that comes from. FHA, since it's coming from the government, and that's why we do it because your mortgage insurance is going to be cheaper, that comes from FHA. That is literally the difference. They are both mortgage insurance policies to cover the bank just in case they have to foreclose and they don't get their money. One is coming from a private source. The other is coming from the government. PMI, conventional, which you did an excellent job of explaining. And an FHA is going to be from the MIP. Same darn thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love it.
You want to back up real quick? Mary had a question that we missed. It was kind of earlier up in there. It was right after I'm sorry, is it Samantha? I just don't want to say these names wrong. I don't know if it was
I'm
Samantha.
killing their names all the time. We just go
Yeah,
with
I'm
it.
so sorry. So Mary had a question back. It was a
Oh.
financing question, and it's a really good one. And so I'm
Yeah.
just gonna, if you want to like get out like something to write it out, and I'm just gonna kind of like
Well,
talk
I
through it
will
while you
go
do that.
to my iPad and you tell me what to write. So first I'm going to put it on the screen, guys, so everybody can see
Okay,
it. An
beautiful.
80% loan was obtained by buyer Joe if he paid $600 interest the first month based on an annual rate of 9%. What was the sales price? So I am
So
going to switch screens here, guys.
So while you're switching screens, I just want to talk about what you're going to do here. The crazy thing is you get these math questions that are basically reverse engineering problems. And so what you think about is, okay, well, if you had the purchase price times the loan amount, you'd know what you'd borrowed. You take your loan amount times your interest rate to figure out your annual interest. And then you take your annual interest divided by 12 to find your monthly interest. And so you've kind of got to reverse engineer this. So what it says is if he paid $600 interest the first month, okay, well, that's 1 month worth of interest. So we can start there. So we need $600 times 12 to tell us our annual interest.
What is $600 times 12? Because I don't have a calculator.
Oh, hold on, let me get a calculator. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. Somebody got it? 7,200?
7,200. I just, I found one.
Okay. So now we've got our annual interest. Okay. And so the way that you find your annual interest is you take your loan amount and multiply it times your interest rate to get your annual interest. Well, you're reverse engineering the problem. So annual interest divided by your interest rate will give you your loan amount. And so it is a 9% interest rate. So your $7,200 of annual interest divided by 0.09 or 9%. Which should be what, 80,000?
So to find the answer, you're going to take 7,200 and divide it by 9%.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You still didn't bust out with a calculator? Slap it.
I've got a calculator. It's 80,000.
Oh, 80,000?
Uh-huh. 7,200 divided by 0.09 or 9% is 80,000.
Still a slap.
Okay. And we're still not there because the question is, what was the sales price? Well, you got an 80% loan to value ratio. So your purchase price times 80% is going to give you your 80,000. So in other words, 80,000 divided by 80% or 0.8 is going to give us our purchase price. So 80,000 divided by 0.8 or 80%, purchase price was $100,000.
I'm writing as fast as I can, man. You talk fast for a southerner.
I really do talk fast. It's all the caffeine and the duress.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir.
Mm-hmm. And so the beautiful thing about math, Mary, is you can always check your work, because now if you ended up with this $100,000 on purchase price, do it the way that most of our brains work, in a linear fashion. So you could take your purchase price times your loan to value ratio of 80%, which takes you back to 80,000. 80,000 multiplied by your interest rate of 9%, which takes you to your annual interest of 7,200. 7,200 annual interest divided by 12 takes you back to $600 in monthly interest, which is where we started. So you can check your work to make sure you're correct. And so it's just reverse engineering the problem. So I like to just think about how you would get to that piece and then just work it backwards. And unfortunately, math is one of those things that practice is one of the only ways to get more comfortable with it. So like exposure to problems like this and reworking them over and over and over again is the easiest way to get better at it.
So let me say this, guys, because I know that was a lot and it was quick. We have videos. I know on my channel I have videos that breaks it down a little slower. But what you can do is after this is over, you'll be able to rewind and watch this again. And if that explanation doesn't make sense, or you need it a little slower, or you want to do it in a T-bar, just either email me or put it in the chat, and I'll lead you to the video that goes over it. Because we could do a lot of time on math, but I don't want to spend too much time on math. So give me a thumbs up. Are we okay with that explanation? Did that help a little bit? Would you be able to rewatch it? Yes. So Liliana, when you go to my YouTube page, it'll be when you know what? I'll show you. I'm going to show you because it's a little bit weird. So I'm going to change screens again. It's going to be, so like this is my YouTube page. Usually if you go to videos, here's the videos. But if you want to see recordings of the lives, you need to come here and click live. And this is the live that we're doing right now. So it's not under videos. It's going to be under live. And as soon as we finish, see, it's telling us we're live. Hi, us. Then it'll be there and you can rewind. So hopefully that helps.
If I put something in the chat, will it show up for everybody to see?
No, I banned you. Nobody wants to hear anything that you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
I'm just going to put that link. It's just a link to like a spreadsheet that has direct links to every single real estate commission for all the different states. So then that way, if you know, I think it was Marilex wanted to look up the individual states, there's links to it right there on that webpage.
Try it, and guys, if you don't have it in a second, let me know, and then I'll copy what he puts in the chat into the YouTube chat.
There you go.
So, I can't believe we're already half an hour. Let's keep on rolling. Thank you for catching that. Sapna, right before that, said, could you explain all of the easements? Well, let's go.
I'm going to let you handle this one.
What is an easement?
You're like, an easement is a right to use somebody else's property that you don't own.
Yes, it's an easement. You can use it, but you can't live there because,
I
like
was
Seth said
I was
earlier,
laughing because I was about to say something completely. I was gonna be like your mom, but I'm like, oh wait, we're teaching a class here. I'm
so
sorry. So I actually had to answer it.
my people know better because when we have lots of D's as an answer, I'm like, the answer is D, 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 D's. And then somebody puts a peanut emoji on there because you can't. How you going to be like D's?
Jeez.
Bam.
Yeah.
So we're used to it around here. Okay,
Okay. I
so
just
an
want to make
easement
sure. So
is the
that's
right
all.
to use or cross somebody's land, right? And you got two types. Oh, I was going to say it's different than an estate. Estate means you have an interest, that means you can live there because you own it or because you're renting. Easement means you can just use it. So we got two types of easements. We have our pertinent easement, and then we have our easements in gross. Seth, tell them about the appurtenant easement. Tell them what they've won.
Tell them what they've won. Well, I'm so glad you asked, Candace. They've won an all expense paid trip to. I'm just kidding. Appurtenant easements are really important to understand. You have heard the word appurtenant a million times throughout any pre licensing course. And an appurtenance is something that runs with the land, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? Rights, liens, encumbrances, easements are a type of encumbrance. And so this word appurtenant easement is an easement that is granted between two parcels of property that are adjacent to each other, right? Lot A, lot B. Okay. So they're right beside each other, they're adjacent. And so what you have is whoever owns this lot, whoever owns this lot are bound by this easement. So you always got one that gets the benefit, one gets the ability to use the other, whether it be a shared driveway or something like that. And so when you are giving the benefit, you are called the servient tenement. When you are getting the benefit, you are called the dominant tenement. And so these sometimes, I don't know why I'm all of a sudden like echoing somewhere. Do you hear that?
No, it's the voices in your head.
Well, I need to take my medication then. Goodness gracious. Uh, so, so there's a lot of different ways that these things happen. I want you to think back in the day, folks. People owned way more land than they do now. Right? And it's been subdivided and sold, subdivided and sold, subdivided and sold. So maybe at some point you owned 800 acres and you built a house in the middle of it, and man, times got tough. And you needed to sell some land, but you couldn't sell where your house was, so you sold the parcel behind it. And so nobody wants a piece of land that they don't have access to. So there's a lot of different ways that these form. But the thing that makes them appurtenant is whoever owns this lot, that's the servient tenement, has to give the benefit to the dominant tenement. Whoever owns this lot, that's the dominant tenement, has to be given this benefit, right? And so they're considered an encumbrance. An encumbrance, remember, is any type of limitation on your ownership on the property. Because when you buy that house, you're either buying it and letting somebody drive through your yard, or you're buying it knowing to get to your house, you've got to drive through somebody's yard. So that is an appurtenant easement. It always runs with the land, not the people. So if you sell it, somebody else owns it, right? It's this parcel granted to this parcel. Okay. Adjacent pieces of property, always two properties in an appurtenant easement.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there because you're a slacker and I don't think you put the link in the chat yet.
I did.
Well, then go
I just,
to the YouTube
I
page
think you
and
really
put it
did
in that
block me.
way. I don't know.
Mine says guest chat. I don't have a place to put anything in the comments. I just can. Mine is in guest chat. It says chat privately with the host and other guests.
Let's see. Let me put it in here because he's a slacker. He did not do it in the right way. But guys, we're going to give him a pass because one, he's our guest. We can't scare him away the first time. And two, he doesn't know what he's doing. Mm-hmm.
I'm still just trapped in a basement.
Shut up. No food for you. No food for
These
you.
are pretty light in my basement.
All right. Excuse me. So a pertinent easement, two properties.
Yep.
I want to, before I explain easement and gross, I want to address what somebody asked in the chat. They said, hey, well, isn't easement by prescription a thing too? Yes, but we're kind of talking about two different things. And I'm going to go back to my iPad to show you something for a second. If you're going to be mind mapping, which you all know I'm a huge one for mind mapping, if I talk about easements, I could have one line that says types, and I could have another line that says how they're formed. Those are answering two different types of questions. So we're saying there's two types. There's easements that are pertinent, if I can spell it. And then you got easements in gross, which, by the way, will have two things. But how they're formed, there could be by prescription, however you spell prescription. I think I spelled that right. How else are they formed, Seth? They're prescription,
By grant
by grant,
or express grant,
expressly,
right? By necessity.
you got necessity. So before we went any further, I just wanted to say part of learning is about making connections. Hold on. I didn't want to cough in y'all's ear, but it's about making connections. And whenever you learn a new piece of information, always go back and relate it to everything else you know. So, easement by prescription is how you got the easement. What we're answering is the types of easements. So, hopefully, that kind of clears that up for you all. All right. So, now I can talk about, well, what is an easement in gross? There's two types. There's the commercial easements, which are going to be like utilities. If you know you have like a gas easement, a gas line easement, or a water easement, where a utility company is using or crossing your land. Or you have a personal easement in gross, which is where maybe what I'm doing is I have land right next to the beach. And Seth doesn't have land next to the beach. And I want to make sure he always has the right to cross over my land to get to the water. I could give Seth, him personally, an easement, if I ever let him out of the basement, an easement to cross over my land. And what makes it an encumbrance, shut up, Seth. What makes it an encumbrance is if I give him that easement in writing and he records it, even if I sell the house, the new owner, so I sell my house to Caroline. I give her my house because Caroline, hey girl, hey. I give her my house. She's going to have to allow Seth to cross. He's going to have that easement until he dies. Now, Caroline, hint, hint, that can happen lots of different ways. We don't know. A bag of cement does wonders for getting rid of people, but it's for his life. He can't sell it. He can't give it away. You can't make it go away. And that's what makes it encumbrance because it's now tied to that piece of land. So commercial easements or a personal easement in gross, if that makes sense. You're so welcome to Caroline. You know I got you, girl. We got to make sure that you have beachfront property.
I will add one other thing to that just because you were talking about prescription. One of the biggest confusing pieces is, and you'll have to correct me with the national terminology here, an easement by prescription and adverse possession are two extremely different things, but they have the exact same criteria in most states. And so that's where you've got to keep them separated, right? An easement by prescription is you did it for so long, you should get to keep doing it. But remember, it's still just a use of somebody's property, right? I've driven through your yard for 20 years. I want to keep driving through your yard. You can't stop me, and I'm going to go to the courts to enforce it, which is different than adverse possession, where same criteria, but you try to steal and try to own somebody's property. And so in North Carolina, we always teach it as ocean. But I think what do other states use for the acronym?
I don't know. I remember it's during my webinar this week. I don't remember who it was, but they say you gangster. Somebody said you gangstered the land.
Right? I think it's high ocean. Hostile, intentional. They always add in high ocean. So ocean, open, continuous, exclusive, adverse, and notorious. But some resources will teach you as high ocean, and they'll also include hostile and intentional. But that's kind of included in the rest of just ocean. And so it has to meet this burden of 20 years for both. Now, of course, adverse possession has what we call a color of title, which is only 7 years. What?
Other states, different years.
Is it really?
Not every state. I know, right?
Most ones I looked at was 20. Maybe not.
I got corrected by a student. They're like, not in our state. I was like, ooh. So maybe I'm wrong and it is every state, but I did have a student say that's not our state. So I'm going to say generally, you need to look it up for your state.
Sure.
Nina, you want to hit on Seth. You want his contact information so you can check on you after this. There's no need. There's no need. Why do you all think I play this?
Why,
I don't have a computer in my basement.
And welcome.
He got welcomed and he's never leaving. I'm going to jump to this question because it's 20 years in Illinois. Oh, thank you. You know what, Samantha? I'm going to wait for that question because I'll pull up a slide and I'm going to give you that whole acronym. Young kids eat up boogers, glue, and dirt. That's a whole thing. Seth, don't judge me. And let's go back to some questions. What did we miss?
That's all I get to eat in the basement too.
Shut up, Seth. Getting to the next question. I'm going, guys. I'm going. Give me a second. But Seth, why don't you pull up the YouTube on another window, and then you can drop stuff into the chat there.
Oh, okay.
That way,
I'm gonna be like
so I want to
Inception.
make sure we get it all here and going in order. Okay, yes. So, Jareen, hopefully I said that correctly. A long time ago, you said this. I'm putting it on the screen. Can y'all read that? It's hard.
Oh yeah,
to
that's
read.
a good question. Oof.
Ugh. I don't know if y'all can read that. I could try to change it, but basically what it says, can I explain the difference between actual authority, ostensible authority, and then the difference between a land contract and a purchase money mortgage? Yes, I can. So actual authority. If I tell Seth he has the ability to go and buy purses in my name, he is my agent, and I tell him in the contract, you can go do this. I've given him express authority. Like he can do it. That is actual authority. I've said he can do it. Then you have implied authority. So let's take it back to real estate. And he is my property manager. If I tell him, hey, in my beach house, during the night, I want the cool breeze to come in. But during the day, I want to save on air conditioning. And I say, I need you to open the windows. So open the windows at night, close them in the morning. He has the express or actual authority to open and close the windows. It was implied that in order to do that and lock them, he's going to be able to go into the house. And ostensible is this weird kind of, I didn't imply it by something I said. I didn't tell him that he could do something. It's more like I let him do it and I continue to let him do it. So because I knew he was doing it and I let him do it, I can't then come back and be like, oh, it's almost like a estoppel in that way. I can't come back and be like, oh no, you can't do that, Seth. Like he ostensibly has the authority to do it because I kind of let it happen. Here's what I'm going to say. Estoppel and ostensible are two of my least favorite words we teach you in this class. Because quite honestly, as real estate agents, we should never be dealing in ostensible or estoppel. All of your agency agreements, all of your authorities really should be in writing. But for the test, you just want to know, okay, ostensible means, well, apparently, it's also called apparent authority. Apparently, he has the right to do this. Estoppel is like, once I let him do it, I can't change my mind about whether or not he can do it if I knew it was going on. So if you keep it at a very base level, and promise me you do not Google it, because if you Google it, you're going to be so far lost down like little bunny foo-foo down a bunny trail. Just ostensible means apparently you can do it, and you should be good for the test. So hopefully that helps. The second thing you asked about was a land contract versus a purchase money mortgage. And I feel like I've been talking a long time, so hit it, Seth.
Sorry, I was being thoroughly entertained by watching this like Inception-y thing because I'm like watching our YouTube live on this one, and then I'm like watching where we're like recording, and there's like this crazy delay. So I kept like doing things with my face to see how long it took for them over here. So like even at the moment, I'm like watching myself over here do like weird eye scowl things. Anyway, purchase money mortgage
You see why
versus
he's
a
locked
land
up in the basement,
contract.
people? Can't let him out
Yeah,
in public.
that's why I'm in the basement. Okay. Folks, they're both purchase money mortgage versus an installment land. Let's just start with the elephant in the room. An installment land
Stop.
contract. What?
Stop.
What?
Hold the presses, because nothing you're going to say is more important than what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Tim or Heather, whoever you are, you passed your exam. What?
Good job, good job. Good job, good job. G-double-O-D-J-O-B, good job, good job.
We celebrate the win here. We celebrate the wins here. Seth, you think I'm crazy? We don't
No, I
care.
know you're crazy, but I did heart that comment over in the
Oh,
chat. I
it's
don't know if it
okay.
came
I
through
just
though,
saw
but
it. And so now I got to play her song.
My money don't jiggle jiggle, it folds. I like to see you wiggle wiggle, for sure.
Yeah, I just got to do it one more time. I am so proud of you. You know we love it when you pass. People come, they tell us they pass. I'm sure whatever you were going to say, Seth, was great. But this is more
it wasn't
important
that
because
good.
we support each other. And y'all, if she can do it, you can do it too. And I love playing that song for each and every one of you. So congratulations. Congratulations. Okay. I'm
I feel like
putting
we're
it
at
back
like a
together.
Chili's, right? Happy birthday from the. Is that
Shut
like
up.
we're just
Are you making fun of my good job song?
no, absolutely
Yes, you
not.
are.
I'm very excited. I just
Yeah.
that was
You're
great.
getting no food tonight. No Chili's birthday cake for you. No Chili's birthday song. No. All right. Sorry about that. Continue
Back to
on. We
the
just have to
booger shirt
celebrate
and
it with
glue.
our song.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
I
that
am.
is fantastic. That is a very big win to be happy for. It's a very difficult hurdle to get over. So
Mhm.
very, very excited. And now you get to move on into the most amazing and bigger and better things in your real estate career, which is great.
Because that means she's
Great.
going to be making the money.
That's right.
All right. We were supposed to be talking real estate. Go.
Yeah. So let me circle back around. Here's the biggest problem. Okay, the purchase money mortgage versus the land contract. Well, first, the big problem is that land contracts have 20 names. Okay, land contract, contract for deed, installment land contract. Some people will even kind of correlate it to like a rent to own, depending on who you ask. So a purchase money mortgage should be thought of as true seller financing. Okay, I want you to think about this. When you are buying a house, you are typically paying some money directly to the seller, your down payment, and then you're borrowing money from the bank. And so we call that a mortgage. Well, what a purchase money mortgage is that the seller is actually acting like the bank. Now, there's two different ways it could happen. They could give you a secondary loan to help provide you purchase money, or they could just finance it themselves. Either way, the reason we have that word mortgages in there is because they put a lien on your property. It is recorded just like a bank is. So they're acting like the bank. And so in a purchase money mortgage, they actually give you ownership of the house. This is the big thing. They deed it over to you at closing, and then they take back a note against the house where you've got this obligation to make payments plus interest. And if you don't, they could potentially foreclose. So it really is financing. So you take legal title in this purchase money mortgage at closing, and then the seller is just acting like the bank. Anything you want to add to that before we switch, Candace?
No, I like it.
Okay,
You did very
cool.
good, basement person.
That's a good deal. Maybe I'll get food tonight. Um, so, nope, still no. So, the installment land contract is different because it is not to be thought of as true seller financing. They're not really acting like the bank, and that's why some people like to refer to it as kind of like a rent to own scenario, because you move in, you live there, you treat it like you own it, but the seller retains the legal title. If you look up the deed, they still own it legally speaking.
What does the
And so
new
they
person
have this.
have? What do we
Say
call
what?
that? What does the new person have? They don't.
The
They're
new
going to
person
get.
has what we call equitable title. So you do not hold legal title, the seller does, but you have equitable title. Remember, equity is this real estate term for how much money you have after you sell versus what you owe. And so you are building towards owning it. You are building interest in it. And ultimately, when you do own it, you'll have that equity. But the thing is, you don't legally own it until you've made your last installment payment. That's the huge and most testable difference. And so that's why some people relate it to a rent to own. Seller holds that legal title. You're said to hold equitable title. And when you make your final installment payment, the seller will then sign the deed over to you. They are done with you. It is your house. And so when I say you treat it like you own it, you're paying taxes, you're paying insurance, and you're paying the seller whatever you've agreed upon. And so there's a big risk for these because if you default, you could lose all of your equity. Now, there is a redemption period in every state where, at least 30 days in most states where you have to be given this right to redeem yourself and get back in it. And of course, for the seller, there's risks as well, because if the market appreciates and goes up, they have this legal obligation to continue to sell to you. And they don't get this lump sum. Now, because this deals with real estate, this would need to be in writing and recorded. And please understand that there is no standardized form in any state for an installment land contract. You would need an attorney involved because of the specifics and the dangers and nuances to it. Does that help?
I hope so.
How'd I
Hey,
do?
hey, Seth.
Yeah.
Can you believe it is 7 o'clock?
Oh my lord.
It goes by so fast. So, what do you think, guys? Should we invite Seth back? I mean, I could do this all night, and I'm sure he could too. But he's got kids to feed, or at least send money to. I got slave labor for him to do in the basement, you know.
Mhm.
But let me know some things. First, should we do this again with Seth? Do we want to invite Seth back in to our special times, people? Because we have fun together. Has Seth met the criteria of being voted back in? Could he be on the island, or should we kick him off the island? Also, Seth, how should they reach you? As we're waiting for them to see if if you're going to come back, how should they reach you?
Um, I have a YouTube channel, so they are more than welcome to come hang out with me on my YouTube channel. If you just Google my name, if you want to put my name in chat, they can find me. So I
Mm-hmm.
have that. I have access to email. You're welcome to put my HPW email in there if they want to reach out to me directly. I'm always happy to help any way, shape I can. I'm sure Candace mentioned, folks, I manage a school in North Carolina where we teach pre-licensing, post-licensing, and CE. And of course, the national concepts are the same. And so we love to, do this for, our national friends, compatriots, as you will. So I'm always happy to help. And of course, Candace and I would talk about this stuff all day if time allowed it. So it has been an absolute pleasure getting to hang out with you folks. I've had a lot of fun, and you absolutely can stalk me, hang out with me, call for help, tell 911 where I'm
Shut up,
at,
Seth. Shut up, Seth.
send the GPS location to
Y'all,
him with my contact information.
if you're leaving and you hear things like, just ignore it.
It
That's
was
him in
me.
the basement. Nothing's happening. It's not nothing at all. You just mind your business, okay? Mind your business. So, guys, you know how you're going to find me. I know Sapna asked a question. She said, "How can you like do this one on one for national review?" Yes, I do have a national review with Prep Agent coming up March something. So you can do that. Or I'm
Candace,
gonna
it's just
put in the
HPW
chat
for the email.
what?
It's just HPW, Chauncey S at HPW.com.
Okay, well, you know what? Maybe you should have put it in yourself then.
I can't chat. You have banned me from
I
the chat.
told you to put it in, open a window.
Yeah, but
This
it
is how we
says that I
always are,
gotta
guys, at
create a channel even though I have 20 channels. I
hpw.com.
don't know.
That's the real one since he wants to be so picky with me getting his email address right. What I was going to say is happening. Yes, you can always do a one-on-one with me, tutoring, or if you need help learning how to study mind mapping. I'm getting ready to do some videos tomorrow talking about how to mind map, how to figure out how to prepare for this exam. I'm going to do that. So yeah, you can always reach me. Y'all know my email address or ask me a question in the chat. Seth, maybe you want to come back. Oh, not next Thursday. We're going to have to pick another day. I know you can't do next Thursday, right?
Am I teaching?
I think you're teaching, bub.
Am I teaching? I might be teaching. Yeah.
But I promise you, I will have Seth back on. Guys, what would be another good night to do this? We already do Monday nights with me and Maria. We do Tuesdays and Wednesdays with me with Prep Agent. Thursdays, I usually do a Facebook Live, but maybe Seth and I, as we roll into our podcast, will answer questions like this. Maybe a weekend day. I don't know. I don't know. So, oh, good, Monica, you learned a lot, guys. It's just one of your sound bites. Nothing to see here. That's right. That's right. This is why I like y'all. This is why I like y'all. So, Seth,
Did,
thank
did
you
you see
so
my
much.
comment come through? Did it come through?
What? Which one?
I put a comment in the chat. Did it come through? Yeah, look at the bottom. It's a me.
Oh, you mean Mario?
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly
Oh.
what I sound like.
I mean, you're not wrong. Okay, guys, we do have to say goodbye because I told him an hour, but we will. Excuse me. Do this again. Seth, you up for maybe a weekend day, a weekend
Yeah, for
evening?
sure. I live for this kind of stuff. I just love to hear myself talk. So, and other people are willing to hear it too. Why not?
Yeah, we know. We know you like looking in the mirror and
That's right.
liking to hear yourself talk. We know.
You know.
You know. Okay, guys, thank you for joining us. We showed you how to do the replay. I might let them back out of the basement for this again. And if it helps, like the video, share it. And if you want to know when the next live is, you got to subscribe because you know me, I'm all over the place. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but you will always be notified with YouTube Live. Otherwise, I think for most of y'all, I'll see you on Monday and then Tuesday and then Wednesday and Thursday. So you get those questions answered. And remember, guys, your path to passing doesn't have to look like anybody else's. Maybe you take it once, maybe you take it 7 times. Seth, has anybody ever asked you how many times it took for you to pass this test?
No.
Great. All right. Deuces, people. We are out just as soon as I figure out how to end this live cast. Bye.
Just start clicking stuff.
I know.
Is it
Just
this
start
one?
clicking.
Does this
Just
go
start
here?
clicking. And
Go
again,
push
y'all,
this?
if you
Just
mind your
close the
business, you
computer.
hear the
Just close
screams.
it.
Mind your business.